Cougars and Bears. Oh my, the Locked On Big 12 squad's having a few issues. And wait, is Duke still in this intro now that we kind of owned them?
We're talking ball with the Big 12 squad, sponsored by Game Time. From Oklahoma State to Utah, from Kansas State to BYU, from Houston to Texas Tech, it's the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network bringing you scoops, breakdowns, and the most comprehensive preview of the upcoming Big 12 weekend. Buckle up, it's the Big 12 squad and we have a seat for you. No hurt feelings and thin skin allowed. Squad up, you're part of the Big 12 squad.
Welcome back to the Big 12 squad. We have major substitute teacher vibes as we're here tonight for the Big 12 squad. Listen, there's a big dispute between Baylor and BYU over some transfer of sorts. And so we got Cam and Jake are actually fighting it out. And as a shill for BYU that is a Baylor alum, Drake is actually having to mediate it. So we got the B team here tonight. And Mountaineer Paul is dying with the hand up. There's all kinds of stuff going on here. Paul, I'll call on you as a substitute teacher tonight. What you got?
Why is West Virginia not mentioned in the intro?
Gotta make room for Duke. That's Mountaineer Paul. He's joined by JT Wistersill. We got Nick, new guy, and we got Kevin and Cody all here for the Big 12 squad show. Again, B is for best, right? That's why I got the B team here. Speaking of best, I want to intro this by going into an idea. It is spring. It is football. We're not going to talk about basketball at all. Nothing ever happened in basketball. Basketball did not happen. I am Parker Angel, host of Locked On Cougs. Kevin, a very good idea, perhaps even Deion Sanders' best idea, I might argue, has been nixed. Now, I don't know. I've never seen anyone stop Deion Sanders on a football field, and so I don't know how they're going to stop this. But what's this whole deal? I mean, it's springtime. Y'all aren't playing spring football games unless you're playing somebody else?
Yeah, so the idea is Deion Sanders issued merch for everyone in the conference. No, I'm just kidding. The idea was a spring game against another
I
team.
believed it. Whatever you said, I was believing it.
It could have happened, right? But the idea was a spring game against another team to sort of, one, keep the tradition alive of spring games because, as we know, across the country, there is an epidemic of teams saying, I don't want to play a spring game because A, we'll have players get poached, or B, because the season is longer and we want to give guys a rest. The NCAA gave out probably the most pathetic statement I've ever seen. And I mean, we'll just go through it, right? The three reasons they gave were it was an unfair advantage to Colorado and Syracuse, who put them in the squad show intro instead of Duke. They're the wrong ACC team, right? Get Syracuse in the intro, but it gave them an unfair advantage. It was too short notice because at the time there was about a month until Colorado's spring game. Colorado spring game is on April 19th. It's going to be on ESPN2. And then the third one, and I think this is my most favorite because there was this whole little tournament. Parker's team just lost it. Most of our teams weren't in it. It's called March Madness. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's this whole basketball tournament. It's this whole thing. It's kind of popular, right? It happens during the school semester, the spring semester. But, hey, they were worried that students were going to miss classes for this spring game, even though it was probably going to be on a Saturday. So, heaven forbid they missed a Friday class, which 90% of these guys take online classes or don't take their own classes for themselves anyway, if we're being realistic. But those were the reasons the NCAA gave. So, as usual, the NCAA is just pissing anytime they have a chance to do something that could be productive.
The comment you made on the rest, is that actually did they mention that? Because that's absolutely ridiculous because the spring practices are way harder than the spring games these guys playing. So was rest actually a reason for not having a spring game?
So those are the reasons that other programs have, right? Like the programs that made the playoff, Texas, Ohio State, they made the playoff, so they don't want to play a spring game. The NCAA basically said,
"Who buys that?" By the way, who thinks that's part of the reason?
That's a load.
As someone who hasn't played a football game since November, I don't buy it at all.
Right.
And that's while we're giving out good idea stickers, though. I do want to segue.
Reasons for other people, not the NCAA. The NCAA was the three reasons I gave.
Mm-hmm. Cody, Mike Gundy, again, full of great ideas all the time. Actually supported Deion Sanders because, I'm sure he and Deion are super close, agree on most things, right? Mike Gundy was in favor of this too, and I feel like if we got both the Gundys of the world and the Sanderses of the world, we should be cooking with gas here, right?
Well, if you're talking about the Big 12, the coaches that draw the most eyeballs, I think you're talking about the two most, and Deion Sanders and Mike Gundy. Yeah, take that, JT. And you know what? Mike Gundy is right. He basically said, who gives 13 flying flips what the mother trucking NCAA has to say? They are a worthless, spineless, feckless, pointless entity that does absolutely nothing for the sport of college football anymore. Mike Gundy said, who's going to prevent us from just rolling out and having a game? I think Mike Gundy's dead on, which sets up for somebody. Somebody is going to do this. And Parker, I think you didn't even mention it. If you just do it and then what? Sue the NCAA. If you're a transfer, you can sue the NCAA and win. If you're a former player, you can sue the NCAA and win. If you're a team that's been caught doing illegal recruiting, you can sue the NCAA and win. So why is anybody worried about the NCAA's opinion on the extra academic opportunities? But it's a bunch of malarkey, and we all know it.
I love the school that can't read good talking about extra academic opportunities. I also love that you count to 13 flying flip by doing all 10 of Deion Sanders' fingers and all 3 of his toes. 13 right there. Nick, mostly because I don't hear your voice very often.
Parker, can I bring this up really quick? Division II level teams do play spring games like against each other. Like that happens in the Division II level. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Well, I mean, more academic institutions clearly than the school that can't. No, joking a little bit on the academic institution part of this. Probably shouldn't throw too much shade there. Nick, I mostly haven't heard your voice today, and while I'm yearning for some Nick M, new guy Nick, I'm not going to go for the last name there. If Iowa State were to play someone, do you think this would be a way to like market a program that like does not have a lot of visibility in the world? I mean, like it's not the biggest of markets. Spring is frankly a better time to play a football game in Ames, Iowa than it is in like November, I would assume, right? Is that not a selling point of some kind?
Well, actually, Taylor Mauser was asked about it, the offensive coordinator for Iowa State, and he was like, dude, we're all for it. That would be awesome. It's an opportunity to play someone else, kind of bash heads against a team that, like, you're not playing your defense for 14 or 15 straight practices. You get a new look. Granted, it'll be very simplified like the NFL preseason games are, but it's still new heads that you're taking on. As far as that market, that's exactly what I was going to say before you brought me in, is like that's what Iowa State kind of needs is – it's kind of like the crossover episodes we do, right? Shout out to Locked On Crossovers, great deal there. But like you get kind of the fan base of now the Iowa State Iowa one. I think that's really cool. It probably wouldn't happen, but like let's say Iowa State and Toledo was one that was thrown out with Matt Campbell having ties there. Yes, there's levels to it, but you bring in Toledo people that are looking at Iowa State and Iowa State people that can look at Toledo. It's like I think it's a great idea, but apparently the NCAA just hates everything. They don't like fun. So I don't know.
That was the most I've ever heard from one new guy, Nick. And I've never
pulling it on yourself is key. That's amazing.
I'm trying to be a real host here of this thing. Paul, I know you're dying, but as you're dying, West Virginia feels like they're going to do a similar thing and that they're going to pull out all the stops to get people to games. I think the spring would be a great time for that. What's the West Virginia angle? Could you play one of your mini regional area teams that are not in the Big 12?
Yeah, actually, Tony Gibson, who was Rich Rod's D coordinator at some point in time, is now the head coach at Marshall. He came from NC State. And they basically brought that up, like West Virginia and Marshall playing a spring game, that kind of thing. And Rich Rod's answer was, we don't even think about Marshall. We want them to do it more like they're supposed to be like best friends too. The Friends of Coal Bowl was really big. But West Virginia at this point now is 12-0 versus Marshall. We kind of little brothered them, you know.
Nice flex.
Yeah. So, you know, like we enjoy the fact. And I think a spring game would be a great way to try to maybe bring that back because as the state loves it, right? It's a great, you know, you got 2 Division I programs in the state. West Virginia obviously historically has had a lot of success, but I think some people forget Marshall was Boise State before Boise State was Boise State. In the 90s, they were the winningest team of the 1990s, tied with Florida. So they had a great 90s run with the national championship at the D2 level, and obviously they had the Chad Payton, Reddy Moss, and they had the Byron Leftwich years. So they had some great years, and they feel like they deserve to play West Virginia every year. In a spring game, maybe a be a way to satiate both parties on that.
Hey, Paul, really quick. I just listening to you say that, what Rich Rod said about Marshall. As a college football fan, I don't like that. Another coach is saying, we don't even care. We don't think about Marshall. I don't think that's good for the sport when you have someone refusing to really acknowledge the existence in terms of.
We don't acknowledge Hawkeyes. I don't mess with it.
To me, that's different because Hawkeyes are D1 level, they're not P4 level, right? So they're still on that solid plane like that. But when Marshall is a lesser team just because they're not a P4 team, I think that's a bad look when you're saying oh, we don't even think about them. I don't like that. How do you feel about that?
I don't think you have all the context. You know what I mean? There's a lot of.
I heard it from you, so
I don't think it matters a hill of beans who you're playing in the spring game. None of us. No matter how good or bad you think your school is, we don't have any indication on what the team's going to look like when the season starts just because of beating each other up in the spring, right? You could think that you have a phenomenal offensive line, and then the season starts and you give up a ton of sacks. Well, it might be just because you sucked, and you didn't know that going up against your own defensive line. So even if you're, and not to mention, I think the 105 roster limitation is going to make the playing field much more even now than even in the years past. Everybody's going to hate
so fast on that.
So your Marshalls of the world are in your Toledos of the world are going to give you a better indication on what your team's going to look like.
I want to talk about JT, the Utah guy, talking about people being on and not on one another's level in 1 second, but we do need to talk to our sponsors first. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel, which is on everyone's level as the NBA playoffs are just around the corner. FanDuel's giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel, you place your first $5 bet, $250 back in bonus bets right there as soon as that bet hits. I love how easy it is to get involved with FanDuel, how accessible the app is. The payouts are almost instant. The three-pointers, the steals, the assists. I love playoff basketball. You love playoff basketball. Everyone loves making a little bit extra change on the action. So make sure you head over to FanDuel right now. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 back in bonus bets today. All right, JT, you don't like the idea of different teams playing in different levels or whatever, or at least comment.
No, I do like them. I don't like them not acknowledging the existence, like I said, of them being oh, we don't care about that. And I don't know all the context, but just the way that Paul said that, Rich Rod said that. I have
the quotes here.
Is this because of the whole We Are Marshall movie or what? I mean, everyone should know who they are at this point, right?
No, you got to think about the context. Rich Rod left to go to Michigan the week that the West Virginia lost a game that would have put them in the national championship, right? Pat McAfee missed the kicks. Pat White broke his thumb. It was we were 33.5-point favorites, and he's gone for 17 years. And one of the very first questions he gets is, hey, how would you like to play? Basically, Tony Gibson in his press conference said, I had the honor to work with a lot of great head coaches. One of them that just got hired there up to school up north. He's talking about West Virginia. I think it's time for the Friends of Cold Bowl again. And then when they asked Rich Rod about that, he said, Gibby's a great friend of mine. He was a staff member, and we're still dear friends. But if you think I've spent one single second thinking about Marshall, we were wrong. I could care less what's going on in Huntington. And
for reference, that was not the last time Pat McAfee missed, for what it's worth. He misses a little bit every day, it feels like. Kevin.
Oh, wow.
Be careful. He's getting sued.
What?
Be careful. Allegedly. If you say allegedly enough, it's okay, right?
Allegedly misses a lot. Also, this is totally Drake Toll, host of Locked On Big 12 for the Big 12 Squad. That's who you're suing. Kevin, this is all started by Deion Sanders, and he is not immune to being in the news for any stretch of time. It feels like he always is.
Yeah.
Is this just a way to keep his name in the news with Travis Hunter and his son leaving? I mean, I guess they're kind of both almost his kids, and one other kid also is leaving that we don't ever talk about. Like what? Is this just hey, let's keep talking about Colorado as they keep pushing the envelope here?
I think there's an aspect to that, an element to that, right? He brought this up last year. For whatever reason, it picked up a ton of traction this year. I don't know what the issue was, but he brought it up last year. I remember doing episodes about they should play Colorado State. They could play Northern Colorado or Sacramento State or something. And it just never really matriculated.
I think it's because he actually pursued doing it this time.
Yeah, this year there was kind of, I think, Fran Brown reaching out kind of up the ante a little bit, and there was this whole movement around it. But I think realistically, the main reason to do this is, one, you want to get something out of your spring game. Like Cody mentioned, you think you could have a stellar roster And it just turns out that half your roster sucks, right? So going up against another team at least gives you a gauge, or at least gives you something to prepare for. Some guys are better in game scenarios. And two, I think it comes down to, and I don't think this is being talked about enough, we are watching college football traditions die every single moment. It feels like, right, we're losing the loyalty to programs, which I get, right? We're losing the rivalries, we're losing conferences, and now we're losing spring games, which spring games are not the biggest event by any means, but we go, because Colorado's spring game is the 19th. After April 19th, Colorado fans will not watch them play football until, August 29th or whatever, whenever their first game is, right? So we are going months without football, and this is like our last sliver of college football. And so it's really sad to see it disappear. And I think Deion Sanders, in a way, despite how hated he is, despite how polarizing he is, he's trying to save a tradition, which is ironic because I think his introduction to the Power 4 level was like, I'm going to totally stir up traditions and do everything my way.
Yeah.
But I feel like he does a lot of things traditionally that like older coaches are in favor of. It's just the way he goes about it. A lot of pushback.
His roots being in the NFL, like that's what college sports is transitioning towards. Like he's like, let's just go full in on it. I love it.
Well, Kevin, I'll tell you another reason that I don't hear brought up enough that the spring game needs to continue to be a thing is because I don't know about you guys, but I grew up poor. So going to regular season games wasn't going to happen all that often. So one game a year and the spring game was like the highlight of the summer. And if you completely get rid of the spring game, you're alienating a portion of the local fan base that isn't going to be able to go to the regular season games, let alone the playoff potential. So I think the spring game in and of itself, it's good for building your local fan base and keeping them engaged.
Well, and Nick brought up the idea of the professionalization of this whole thing. It feels weirdly like preseason football. There's no preseason in college football, right? There's none of those kind of games. Pro teams practice against one another before the preseason games happen. Big 12 teams, college football teams don't get to do that either. JT, I'm interested, though, that as Utah seems to hate everything about the Big 12, I'm getting the vibe you're jiving with this and kind of rolling with the Big 12 on it, right?
I totally agree with the Big 12. Like in terms of what you're talking about, like wanting to have spring games, right?
Having spring games against other teams, like making this more of a spectacle.
I think you meant just like overall happiness in the conference, actually.
I want spring games. I want spring games against each other. I think it's fantastic for the sport. I think it's fantastic for the fan bases. There are so many memories and times I've seen people tweet now, like, oh, it was so great to go up with my family up to, I'm the Utah guy. So Rice-Eccles Stadium, where Utah plays in, watch a spring game with my family. So I am totally against these spring games getting canceled. As soon as Texas and USC started to do this, I hated it. I think it's terrible for the sport. It's something that's fun. And it really does suck too, just the whole element of what makes college sports just changing rapidly so much and painful to watch is how much it's changing. Is I get one of the reasons being they don't want their players to get taken off their roster. That it sucks and I hate it, but we see
it's
that
going to happen anyway.
No, what happened? I think in the spring,
it's happening right now. Colorado lost a running back today, and
it can happen regardless.
I don't think spring film.
I am for spring games. Spring games should be played, and I'd love them if they were played against each other. But that's the only reason I get behind for why they're getting delayed is players getting taken off their roster because that's just something that's happening every day. But once again, spring games should absolutely be played. Also, Parker, you're doing a fantastic job of hosting, but we're 16 minutes in this thing, and we didn't talk about what happened to your team in the national championship yet. I'm just saying,
we're just glossing over that. I was ready.
What are you talking about?
Well,
it's spring football
speaking
time.
of Pat McAfee missing, Emmanuel Sharp did what?
Well, he didn't.
He did what is exactly, I think, one of the most PG thing I said on Monday night was he did what? That's exactly.
Okay, Parker, let me take over as host real quick. Let me ask you a question. 2 questions here.
Here we go.
This is Locked On Big 12 Squad, brought to you by Locked On Buffs. Kevin Borba here. Parker, you were the only program that really gave the Big 12 a chance, right? You took down Duke. You took down the powers that be. You kind of gave Nick. It's fine. Relax. We know Iowa State.
I'm still hurt. Okay.
You're fine. You're fine. But realistically, you guys had a chance to kind of give the Big 12 something to cheer about, and it didn't happen. I have 2 questions. One, why is Kelvin Sampson such a unique personality, right? Right after the game, he's throwing players under the bus. He's like, Jawan was missing shots today. He normally makes those. We only had 5 assists. We were missing shots. Is Kelvin Sampson always a jerk? And can you guys reload and get back to this point, right? He's old. Kelvin Sampson's like 80 or something.
That feels like a big
allegedly
for And we're gonna come right back in. Da, 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 da.
Oh, that is great.
We're
The
back
lad
with
doesn't wanna
the Big
answer it.
12 squad, and I just got interrogated about a man I admire so much. Kevin, can you repeat that question? Because I'm a little taken aback.
Yeah, which one? I mean, realistically, can Houston? I have 3 of them. Okay, can Houston reload? Like, can you get back? Why did Kelvin Sampson throw his players under the bus immediately after the loss? And he's old. Is like just point blank. He's old.
He's old.
So you're
mark, is
asking if
wild.
Houston can bring it back, and if Calvin Sampson is an old asshat.
We should call him Kevin. Honestly,
It's
since it bothers him so much, and they didn't win, it's Kevin Sampson now.
Oh my God.
They took that L. They took it from his name.
They took it.
Golly. I don't know where to start. So first of all, I will say Kelvin's
one hell of an
always
L.
very honest.
Okay.
He also will tell a reporter when he thinks their question's bad. That's kind of him. Houston's not the like national brand that several of the other Final Four teams were. So you don't see it quite as often. But Kelvin, I think one of the things I love about him is he's very, very honest. And when he tells reporters like you need to ask that question differently, he means it. He means you need to ask your question differently. And so I think that was just him being honest, looking at the stat sheet and being like, listen, we missed a lot of shots tonight. And he also said, for what it's worth, the thing I think every fan was thinking was like, if you'd have told me that those 2 guys would have gone 5 for 20 from the floor, if you'd have told me we'd have held them to 65, if you'd have told me that we'd have out rebound or whatever the different stats were, he's like, I'd have thought we'd won and we didn't. And I think that there's like an honesty in that I appreciate. It is brutal. And it's frankly not like the new younger version of a coach. He is 69 years old, which is nice, but it's also he turns 70 next season.
Allegedly.
Very good toss in there.
I feel like he is very spry. He like dances in the locker room. Like I think he's in better shape than people that if I'm that good a shape at 70, I'm doing something really, really well. Houston is reloading, and I guess that kind of can transition to a spring transfer portal window kind of segment too, because Houston's bringing in 2 McDonald's All-Americans, 2 different Gatorade State Player of the Year for their respective states. They just brought in Pop Isaac, who's a 16 points per game guy in the transfer portal. Houston is rebuilding, reloading in a way that I think is, bringing in multiple 5-star guys is different than they've done in the past. And so I think that's the intrigue there. Their high school class compared to other high school classes is like in the top 3 in every different metric. I'm intrigued, though, because I don't mean to be that guy. Houston's run the Big 12 for the last 2 years. And the competition, Cody, y'all are loading up too quietly, it looks like, over at Oklahoma State. What's the deal there in Stillwater?
I honestly think that some of the Texas A&M coverage of Steve Lutz potentially taking that job, I think he was able to use that as leverage and get more donors involved, which is why we catapulted this into a very successful portal class. On3 has us as the #1 transfer portal class in the country. Now, they also take into consideration what players are leaving, right? And we only had 1 scholarship guy leaving as opposed to some of the guys we had bringing in. But even 247 has us like top 15, top 16 transfer class in the country. I do think that the historical connotations behind Gallagher-Iba are allowing people to see that you can do a lot of things at Oklahoma State. We just lay dormant for quite some time. But now we have a coach that understands the X's and O's. We actually got better as the season progressed, and you saw some of that in the NIT tournament. And now we're able to kind of segue into a very successful portal class. We didn't have any shooters. We just had a bunch of athletes, right? That could play
because you
basketball.
gave us Javon Small.
We did. We were trying to help people out in the conference as
Poor
well.
kid.
But I'm very
Javon
excited
Small.
about what is currently cooking in Cowboy basketball. I don't want to say that we're going to, be back to where we used to be, but
You
we
won't be.
clearly have a coach that understands how to coach. And now we're bringing in talent, which we did not have much of this previous season.
Hey,
I want to
Parker,
stress that
really
the NIT tournament is not about knitting. It's actually the next basketball tournament down. My Cougs fans might not know about that one, though. So I had to throw that out there. JT, you had a question?
really quick, I wanted to back up 2 things Parker said earlier. Me and Parker usually butt heads, but me and host Parker, we're getting along.
You guys are the villains.
Who we
Look
got
who
tonight?
joined us as we're about to get a
God.
question.
Oh,
As
speaking
soon as
of
we go to
villains,
basketball, we have Sid show up. Oh, wait, that's Spencer.
Sid Vicious is in the building.
JT, you had a basketball question now as soon as Spencer shows up?
All I was really going to do is I was going to agree and back you up, Parker. I was going to say almost every preseason ranking I've seen so far is Houston in the top 5 for next year at a bare minimum, some even higher. And I have had the pleasure of watching Kelvin Sampson coach in the past year and watching Mac Brown coach. Mac Brown, it looked like he was ready, like time to retire, lack of fire, lack of passion in the game I was at. Versus you look at Calvin Sampson, he's given it to his assistants, he's given it to the refs, he's given it to his players. Like the fire that still burns in it.
Yeah, kind of like Pete Carroll.
I have zero doubts in. One more time.
He does look like
kind of like Pete Carroll. When,
yes.
He was that age.
Great point. Mm-hmm.
While we're talking about building basketball roster, Spencer, host of Locked On College Football. I want to get to college football in 1 second. This is like, spring football. Spring is about football. We're not going to talk about Monday night for too long. But I have a question for Matt and Paul about basketball before we get there. And Paul, do y'all have a basketball team right now? Like, who's on the roster? Like, what's going on there?
We've actually gotten 2 really good transfers.
But you have to have 5 on the floor.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what happens when your coach leaves in the middle of the night, doesn't tell anybody, doesn't say goodbye. His family won't text me back, even though we talked all season long. Like, it's whatever, man. So
that feels personal.
It is personal for me. It is. We talked every single week. Of course, it's personal.
Oh, you were being serious.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show, Spencer.
I got to tell you, when you first said that, I thought that was just like a gravitas sort of.
No, Paul.
I thought that was just Paul. I thought that was just Paul being Paul, just being like, yeah, man. I talk to the West Virginia coach all the time. I thought next year you're gonna be like, yeah. Then I went to dinner with Nick Saban that night and talked to him about the West Virginia job.
Which wouldn't surprise me.
Wouldn't be the craziest story he's told on this show. Would not be the craziest thing he's said.
Yeah, no, I mean, I had it stemmed from an NIL deal I did with Tucker. I got to know his uncles through that, and so we just kind of stayed buddies, and we talked every single week about, they were always asking me, how do you think the fans are going to react to this or that, and sometimes we just talk about life. Like, I thought we were buddies for real. And so when all this started to happen, all of a sudden one of them went into rehab. All of a sudden one of them had too much work going on. Nobody wanted to talk. Everybody got cagey. My thing was just like, we talked for a little year, day in, day out. And you can't even say goodbye, not even to me, who I thought we were buddies, So I guess my feelings were just a little bit hurt on it, but it's just like the entire family did it all at once, So, and then Tucker owed me another appearance on the show. Like, there's a lot of things that I'm not happy about with that. So unfortunately, we had to deal with it. And we were left in a situation where Ross Hodge comes in. We're cranking our Hodges now, baby. We're up. We're ready.
Yeah, we are.
This year shows up right on.
By the way, we've
Frank
added Brendan Lorient, who was on that FAU Final Four team. Really, really, really good athlete. Can jump completely out of the gym. He can bounce his head off the rim. He's a good player.
He still has eligibility.
Yeah, he still has eligibility. And then we just got a 7-footer, which we haven't had in a long time, and Harlan Obioa.
What do you mean by that?
Was one of the best offensive rebounders in the country last year.
Allegedly.
And then we are in the top 5 for 2 of the best guards in the portal. So hopefully we get one of those 2.
I'm just surprised that JT wanted to talk about basketball.
I'm surprised that JT wanted to make jokes about players' ages. I can't believe that's where Utah came in on this. That's crazy.
What does that mean? What do we mean by this?
I mean, they played a 37-year-old quarterback last year.
Hey, that was in the past, though. Now we don't have really any.
Now they're 20.
In honor of Spencer being on the program, I think what Mountain Paul was basically saying is the DeVries family can go suck a fluffy duck for all he cares. Huh? Oregon, by the way.
I know this is the first time. Yeah, I bet people are wildly confused. Like, why is there an Oregon flag back there? And the answer is, why don't you have one?
Yeah,
I'm surprised.
There's all kinds of confusion here.
I'm surprised that Oregon hasn't sent you one. By the way, I mean they literally blew up a giant duck in the river at Big Ten Media Days last year. Like,
I wouldn't be repping Oregon after what happened in the Rose Bowl.
You know what? We're loud and proud no matter the day, and we just take solace in the fact that eventually life will get better. We hope.
You are loud? I thought you were fighting for wins, not quits.
Yeah, they had 13 of them last year, which is 8 more than your team, by the way. Oof. Okay. Just want to point that out. But it's also semi-relevant. I mean, Oregon does play a Big 12 team this year. It's that one. Right there, they get to
Oregon. So
they get to come to the great state of Oregon. A strange connection game for me in 2 of the states that I have lived in my life, playing on the same football field. How about that?
Well, Spencer, we're playing with house money, buddy. That's the beauty of it.
Oh,
we
I'm
beat
fully
Oregon,
expecting you guys.
obviously our season's way different. If you lose to Oklahoma State, you're going to be ridiculed. Tremendous.
Yeah. Oh no, there's no.
Notre Dame wasn't though.
That is true.
There's no doubt about it. Yeah, that's definitely a matchup where Oregon's got to. You're at home. Oklahoma State just went 3-9. It doesn't matter if you lost your entire roster from the year before. Losses at Autzen Stadium are not tolerated, but I fully expect Mike Gundy to walk in there and the first play to be a flea flicker. And if it's not, then why the hell are we playing the game?
So, Spencer, if we're talking about why the hell are we playing games, I'm going to make you the representative of all of college football as opposed to Locked On College Football. We here all want spring games against other teams, not just any kind of spring game. We want some kind of football.
Thank you.
No, you're representing all of college football right now, Spence. You have to.
Paul, what is on your phone?
Paul with the debris family, it looks like.
The debris.
Wow. Okay. Hold on. I'm going to answer it. Parker, I'm going to answer your question. I need to go to Paul here for a moment. Are you wondering why he doesn't want to talk to you when you have blown up his phone with 15 calls?
No. Those were our calls.
Some of those were incoming.
True.
A few. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. I thought that was like yesterday's phone log.
Oh no.
And I was just like, bro, homeboy's gotta tone it down.
Yes,
down, boy.
I was like, this is a lawsuit coming in.
Okay.
Right now, let's get him on the show.
Allegedly.
There's like 5 straight incoming calls right there. But I mean, point is like,
hey, why don't you put his number up there?
Yeah, put it across the bottom.
You know what? I was so mad when it initially happened. I almost did some really dumb things.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't.
No, nothing like that. Like I was just gonna be like, hey,
West Virginia and San,
because everybody was asking me like, what do you think? What do you think? I was like, well, here's their number. Like that's what I was about to do.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. We don't condone.
Not really, but
Parker,
I wanted to be mad about it.
Right, Nick?
No, Spencer, let's let West Virginia keep talking. Generally speaking, good things happen when West Virginia people keep talking. No one ever gets fired. That's how things go when West Virginia keeps talking.
That's true.
Spencer, you were supposed to represent all of college football when you said your answer about playing spring games against other teams. But college football is the one turning this down. We're all like, we want to play. And
well, hold on. I don't know that college football is turning it down. Who is college football?
Who is college football? Really?
Like, first of all, I am college football.
Not the NCAA. We know that.
Okay, but so here's the thing. Colorado went to the NCAA. I don't know why anyone's asking them any questions anymore, but it's that's like going to a step parent and asking for permission for marriage. It's like that's not the same. No, like that doesn't ring. That doesn't have the same weight and force behind it. Like it just doesn't. So the NCAA said, no, it's too short a notice. It's an unfair advantage and whatnot. I'm like, yeah, okay, why reward teams for having a great idea that, they'd be paying for, not you, and that everybody would like, why would we do that? I never got the sense, based on how that went down, though, that the answer was no, you can never do that. The answer seemed...
yes, this year, no, maybe later.
Yeah, that's the sense I got. So what's important is that the pressure remains across the sport to allow for this. And look, if a team still wants to have a traditional spring game, I think that's fine and beats just having, a showcase or a team day or anything like that. Yeah. Because I think the spring game is the best thing for fans. But I think an even better thing for fans, objectively, is having a scrimmage against another team. I don't care if you're worried about injuries, which, by the way, happen now during spring football literally all the time. Guys are not going 50% just because they're going against their own players. That's first thing. Like, don't schedule in a rivalry where you could get cheap shots and things get heated. Like, okay, I get that. But to say you as a fan or anybody in college football, it is far more interesting to watch, even if it's a 7-on-7 scrimmage against literally any other team. Literally any other team. If you want to bring up a group of 5 or FCS team, that'd be better than going against your own guys, because you get a better snapshot as an outsider of what your team actually is, where your expectations should be. Yes, Kevin.
Yeah. I had a question for the basketball enthusiasts on this show. Parker, you specifically. NCAA doesn't allow it for football, right? Because it was all the reasons we gave, me and Spencer
Great point.
gave. What does basketball do before the season? They're called secret what?
Scrimmages. You're allowed.
Why-
So the basketball ruling there is
games.
you have an opportunity of up to 2 exhibitions or secret scrimmages.
Yeah, there we go.
Can't be video at the scrimmages. Exhibitions can be televised. The difference there being an exhibition has to be played out kind of like a game. They got to play 2 halves. Right?
Yeah. Anyway, I've said my piece. I have to go now, but this has been great, and we should do it again. I just like to point out Parker invited me to come and chat on the Big 12 Squad show. Drake has invited me once. The entire time.
I needed a punching bag to represent college football.
That's
Spencer,
exactly right. Yeah. But you know what? Drake doesn't want that.
He didn't punch back at all. There was no punch. No.
Drake doesn't. Yeah. Well, I guess you
I
know
like
what?
how you're
Drake,
trying to divert away from that you're leaving. That's what.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. I was supposed to start recording with someone 2 minutes ago.
Kick him out.
Well,
Who
next
is it?
time,
What's
just
her-
say,
what's her
I'm
name?
Spencer,
It's Brian.
Mother Truck and McLaughlin.
Funnily
don't need
enough,
an
I
invite.
actually also have to go right now. 2 minutes
Yes.
ago, I was
All
supposed
right.
to
So
be
this is
there.
going to be a 5-man squad, but I will see
Really?
you find people again soon if Drake ever invites me back.
Okay,
This
I
is-
wanted to ask this question when Spencer was in here.
Do you have
Can't
to go or
believe
no?
he just dipped
I
like
thought you said
that.
you had to go.
Yeah, what'd you
No,
have to
I
ask
was-
me?
I was saying like,
You
I'm
can't
gonna
believe
go
Spencer dipped.
record.
What about Spencer surprises you with that? There's nothing surprising about what just happened.
He just doesn't come in enough for me
It's
to
an
really
abuse of power,
vibe
and I'm tired of it.
on what he is. But I actually was going to ask this in like the first or second segment, but it takes a while for me to gain the courage to speak on a podcast. So I'll say it
Speak
now.
your truth, Nick Martinez. Speak your truth.
It's a truthful question. When we talked about like the Iowa State Toledo kind of spring game conversation, one of the big pieces of that was like, you want to talk about players getting poached? Toledo, every single one of those guys is now on basically the chopping block. Are they going to go to Iowa State or not? Then I saw this come out from Mickey Joseph of Grambling State, the head coach there. He was talking about like there needs to be a buyout for guys from smaller schools moving to bigger schools. Thoughts on that? I just wanted to know what everyone else was kind of on that, because I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but like I like it. I think that's actually a great thing for all these younger guys that are just getting poached with like no repercussions.
Well,
Yeah, you're
Nick
not allowed to
Maravich-
say that, Nick. You're not allowed to have an opinion. What are you, crazy?
They need to have contracts.
Not my
right?
thing.
This is where college football and college athletics are headed. Is these guys sign on for 1 to 3 to 4 years, right? And if they leave their contract early, they have to be bought out. And I think that's a great idea. But I also think that requires someone with gall, not the NCAA, obviously, to figure out how to make sure these contracts are actually like legit, right? We remember the Wisconsin to Miami kid or vice versa, whatever it was, where it's
Yeah.
like he had an NIL deal and it's like, okay, well, I don't want to go here. And they're like, well, you have to. And he's like, I'm just not a student here anymore. So you have to get contracts that could do stuff. Go ahead, Parker. Sorry.
And the
No, I'd say,
NCAA
first
came
of all-
down on him heavy, didn't
Nice
they?
job, Cody.
If he went from Miami to Wisconsin, not Wisconsin, Miami, that's probably hustling backwards as a college student. Generally, most college students are trying to get the city of Miami.
I think it
Um,
was. But
I only wanted to chime in as the guy who's representing a school. It was most recently the little guy, right? I guess
It
a
was.
long time ago, Utah and West Virginia were in smaller conferences than this is right now. And Colorado, I guess, was not in the Big 12, but you've been in the power conferences for a minute now.
don't disrespect
and-
your former employer, the Pac-12. Don't do that. Don't do that.
We was in the '88 national championship game, bud.
Okay, and we were negative what years old? I
Oh, I
really
was alive. What are you trying to say, bud?
Fair enough. No, I just was like, we had guys poached fairly regularly. Whether it was Derek King went to Miami, our running back ended up going and sitting on the bench in Colorado with Deion, like that. That's the thing that really happened. And I guess my argument is like, Nick, those poachings and stuff like that are happening anyway. I don't know how you make a formal contract. I don't think there's any way that has any sort of bearing on a spring game to me because they're already happening.
No,
I think he
not
was saying
necessarily tied to the spring game. I think just in general is kind of what he was
in
talking
the
about.
future. Yeah, and in the future, like what we have at NIL right now is not going to be the same format we have in 5 years, where it's just like, I want Nick to go to Colorado, so I'm going to give him $2 million to leave Iowa State, right? Like that's not going to be what it is. I wish, Nick. I wish.
And
but
I would go to Denver for half
So do
that.
I.
Keep that in mind, Kevin. I'd go to Denver for half that.
I'm just saying, right? But
Starting a bidding war.
they have to figure out a way to make sure that when these guys sign their national letter of intent, which that's probably going to go away at some point because that's a lie at this point, right? It has to mean something. It has to be like, I'm going to Colorado for 2 years. I have an opt-out clause for year 3, which means the program knows year 3, I'm testing the transfer portal or they have to re-up. Yeah, or they have to re-up. So it's one of those things where it has to completely change, which I mean, this is delayed by the inevitable death of the NCAA, right? We need a commissioner. We need better lawyers who can actually manage college football. And college football needs to stop being the wild, wild west because it's just not what it was intended to be.
Nick,
I want to
counter
Kevin, though, because I'm generally speaking very pro player in a lot of movement scenarios, as much as it stinks to like have your favorite players leave. And my reasoning typically comes back to, and Kevin, I'm going to pick on you a little bit. Deion Sanders gets rumored for every big job and every level of football all the time. So if a player signs a 2-year deal and Deion dips, it's got to tear up the deal immediately, right? I mean, like theoretically,
right?
Like,
yeah,
I would imagine there would be a fine print clause, just like now, right? If a coach leaves or quits or gets fired, then everybody has an open window to explore other options.
But the players would not be able to explore the options the way a coach does, and that's where the inequity implies. Like, I don't like the idea that like the coach can take a bunch of offers and say, I'm going to stay at Colorado. The player, like, no, you signed to a deal. You can't take offers in the in-between there, right? That's shaky to me.
That makes sense.
That's on the players, though, right? It puts on the player to pick where they want to go for how, like, say I don't like Travis Hunter, for instance, right? Number 1 overall recruit goes to Jackson State for 1 year and say he wanted to test the market. He could say to Deion Sanders, I'm going to be here for a year and then I'm going to see what happens. Like, he could have done that, right? And like, he didn't have to follow him to Colorado. He had the whole beef he had with the 5-star receiver at Florida State because the guy was making fun of him. And he was like, your coach literally wants me to come play over you, right? So they could test the market however they want. They just have to pick their contracts wisely. And I think obviously that takes away some freedom, but I think a lot of the frustrations that we have with the sport is because the freedom has turned into chaos and the chaos has sort of clouded the sport as a whole.
Nick, real quick, I really like the idea of them having to pay for the guys. If they take them from smaller programs, they will never go for it. They have all the power right now. The SEC and the Big Ten do. It will never happen. I love the idea. I wish it was something to give the little guy more NIL resources, more stuff. But at the end of the day, the big dogs have all the power right now, as unfortunate as it is.
Well, and we're moving towards them having even more power with like the playoffs and having more bids and
auto bids.
Yeah, you're looking at, are we going to have a commissioner or is it just going to be the SEC and Big Ten are now running all of college football? Like that's kind of the path we're going down. So I completely agree with you there. I just think that when I read that, I was like, I feel like that makes sense.
I love that.
It does.
Because I mean, it's not fair for them, right? Like it sucks because like every program, and this even goes for honestly some of the schools in the Big 12, every program is a feeder program for the SEC or the Big 10 is what it feels like, right? It's like we're finding these
someone to a Big
Utah.
All want someone to a Big 10 or SEC program. Like I know Utah did past off season, or you guys
Colorado did, yeah. Like it happens. Like Utah is known for recruiting 3-star guys that are overlooked in California and other states. Iowa State's bread and butter is finding these under-recruited guys that are overlooked by the Midwest programs. Oklahoma State is like the guys that maybe were overlooked by Oklahoma. Houston has to recruit against every school in Texas. And so West Virginia, same thing. They're over there in that country where it's like we are all doing the dirty work for them and finding these guys. And then they're just like, hey, we'll toss you a little bag and come on down. There's no nothing.
A little bag means a whole different thing in West Virginia, though, and Paul's been suspiciously quiet on this whole thing.
Well, actually, I do have some news on this. Can you imagine, though, real quick, what Tavon Austin would have been offered? I was just thinking about that the other day. God, it's hard to imagine what the bag would have been like for him after that Oklahoma game or whatever. But so, yeah, Ren Baker and actually Rich Rod both spoke today to the Senate committee, and it was really interesting on what they're going for, and it's something that not a lot of places are doing yet. State of West Virginia wants to do a middleman. So it's going to be this nonprofit that kind of handles NIL and rev share both for the university. And the entire goal of it is to lift the veil of obscurity that is over all this, because nobody knows what anybody's getting paid. Nothing's really being discussed. The collectives a lot of times give the coaching staffs a hard time, right? So what they've proposed to do is to get this nonprofit, basically let them control everything. And that way you can fairly get these deals done with these kids. And I think that's a great step in the right direction. And for a place like West Virginia, kind of gives us a little bit of an advantage, because not only are we going to have, like we we've already got it, the 20.5 million for rev share. That's a big deal for us. Obviously, we're also going to be able to do the NIL things on the side. Now, are we going to be able to keep up with Ohio State? Probably not. But we're going to have a little bit of a recruiting edge, I feel like, initially with this, if we can get it done quick, especially because we have no competitor in our state, obviously. So that's like one of our biggest pitches in this. If the money's pretty well even, one of our greatest pitches has always been you can come to West Virginia and be the only show in town. There's no pro team. Literally, Marshall's the next biggest thing. So, and this
and we don't even think about them. So, like,
and this also does affect Marshall. Well, like I was saying earlier, though, with Rich Rod, he spent 17 years away, made the worst decision of his career. And one of the first questions he gets asked about Marshall, I think it was bad timing because he's trying to stay focused on fixing West Virginia and not scheduling Marshall. And Marshall wanted to do one of the biggest reasons it hadn't got done recently is because of they wanted a 1-for-1, and that just doesn't happen, right? Like that rarely happens anymore with group of 5 schools. Usually it's 2-for-1, right? Usually you go 2 home for us, 1 away for you or whatever. So that's for whatever reason, Marshall won't agree to that.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of group of 5, this is quite a fantastic, I might even call it a Fab 5, group of 5 here.
Hey, Parker.
You mentioned, JT, I want to transition 1 second, but you got one last note?
I was only going to bring up, I feel like we should just talk about what's going on between BYU and Baylor. I just wanted to get that in at some point, but you keep rolling.
So I actually have live image of Jake and Cam fighting this one out. It's right here. You got a cougar and a bear duking it out. Somewhere in there is the BYU shill that is a Baylor alum and Drake Toll mediating the two as well.
Man, I had something good on Borba too. I wish you would have stuck around. I really did.
What do you
he pocket dialed me the other day, right? And this is legit. All I heard was like it sounded like on a bed, like I was
like
freaking out.
No.
And then I heard a girl.
He's probably building.
I was like, "What in the heck is going on, man?" And like I was like, "Hey, what's going on?" And it turns out he was just working out. But it was this rhythmic sound. I'm like, "What in the heck am I hearing right now?" And he was like, sorry to Shannon Sharp you. Like that was what he texted me.
Well, you know what? Never mind. He could have been working. I call certain things workouts that might be misconstrued.
So you have a lot of kids.
Cody, you're so close to keeping it in the episode. Good job, my friend. You're stopping yourself.
No, Cody's been really focused because he's watching bat and ball sports right now, which I guess is what you could also call working out if you wanted to.
Yep. There you go.
Very challenging sport. Very challenging.
That's called a segue, ladies and gentlemen. Not that there are that many ladies, actually. We're like, 7%, 4%, something like that. Anyway,
Drake said
I'm a man, personally.
Are you 40? No.
Are you 40? That's only Cody Stovall. Cody, how is that softball game going? They actually have a good softball team there at Oklahoma State.
Oh, you just took the lead, so bad timing on your part. Thanks a lot, bud.
West Virginia's got a cool rifle team.
A cool rival team? Rifle.
Yeah, we won like 20 national championships in rifle. Something crazy.
Shooting things in Morgantown is a big deal. Go figure.
Yeah, I could see that being the best Big 12 program in rifle.
It is.
I think it's good at it too, actually.
I was going to say, I think Iowa State would probably be close, actually, behind there.
That might be all Iowa State has this time of year. I don't know, baseball.
I think West Virginia legitimately is like the I don't know the Alabama rifle or whatever, but so no, nobody's close. Okay,
are they the
West Virginia's got something.
Yeah.
No, it's that Alabama is the West Virginia rifle team of football. That's what it is. That's what it is, Paul. Oh, you got it backwards.
Yes,
there you go.
You've got it backwards. Paul, can I ask an indelicate question a little bit? Riflery makes me think of chaos. Like, what is recruiting? Recruiting someone for riflery means that they've shot a lot of guns as a teenager, I assume. How do you go, like in basketball, you might go find someone off the pickup street ball court to come join. Has there ever been like pickup street riflery people you pull in there at West Virginia?
And also, what does the road from riflery look like after you finish your collegiate career? Is it pro riflery, cross country, skiing riflery?
I'd assume it's an Olympic thing. Anyway, Paul, you're the expert.
Technically, air rifle, right? You know what I mean? But I mean, it's a good question. I mean, the West Virginia air rifle team this year was really good. They won the national championship, which is pretty good. Navy was the team that apparently they had to win that over. I'm learning this along with.
Wait, the academy is allowed to compete in riflery?
Apparently
That feels not.
And the fact that West Virginia is like beating them consistently.
Yeah, wait, hold on. So
What a
they don't have
34-point
to
win.
shoot weaponry throughout basic or
34.
A school, yet they have a rifle team? That seems
So
odd.
West Virginia has 20 titles. The next closest program is Kentucky with 3.
I can see Kentucky being good, actually.
Moly.
That's a pretty big gap.
Yeah, they're really good.
Wow.
So I mean, West Virginia's pretty good at something. Look, guys,
guess
it's
you
been a
gotta
horrible
agree.
6 years with Neil Brown. I'm so glad he's gone. I just want some kind of hope. And so that nonprofit thing coming out today was like, for me, it was like, and we were being told we're going to get this 20.5 because not everybody's guaranteed to get it, right? I don't know if everybody's going to be able to operate at that 20.5. Every single year you're having to make it there, especially since our travel costs are so high for years in the Big 12. That's legitimate. Like we had a $100 million year revenue wise, in West Virginia's football, sports, whatever. And we were still in the red because of travel, because at that point in time, we were the only Big 12
What year
team that
was
ever
that,
had
Paul?
to travel.
Was that this last year?
No, it was
But
not
now
this
you
last
got
year. It was
Pat
before we
McAfee
added
money,
Cincinnati.
buddy.
and
You'll
all
be
that.
all right.
Yeah.
That's what
Well,
an episode of that show. You're doing fine. You're doing fine.
The reason I asked though is because that number is legit. Like Iowa State probably going to be really stretching the dollar to make that $20.5 million mark. I think we made like I want to say it's either 115 or 130 last year or 2 years ago, whatever the 2023 fiscal year. Like it's doable, but you're really pushing some numbers there. I wonder where the rest of the Big 12 is going to sit. Like obviously bigger name schools are going to have no problem. But then my whole thing with the 20.5 was like, now we've got a level playing field. It doesn't seem like that might be the case if it's Iowa State, for example, like now we actually only get to work with 19 of that 20.5 because it's just going to stretch the budget too far.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and hadn't been a Big 12 school or a Power 4 school. Some of the smaller Division I schools, though, have talked about like going down divisions to not have to worry about competing with schools that are offering the full 20.5, right?
Yeah,
and I guess the trickle up effect there, though, would be like it kind of could very quickly cut into those buy games you play, BU-wide buy games you play the first couple weeks, right? Suddenly, if you're Houston, if Rice decides, hey, we'll go be a D3 academic school or whatever. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, but theoretically, right, that one of those
you want Rice to
non-conference
do
games,
that, don't you?
I'd like to end on a win first, or I guess a more fun win. They beat us 2 years ago. We beat them last year. A more fun win. Generally speaking, but that's not. I guess my thought there is that like theoretically that would be the impact on the Big 12 is that your smaller school opponents before conference players suddenly, they're like, we're good, right? We're good. I don't think there's any other impact. I imagine every Big 12 school is going to find a way to do the 20.5. If Houston's added, they're going to do the 20.
Most will. There's been reports that some aren't going to make it. There have been reports of that. I'm not saying necessarily on Big 12 schools, but we've heard some P4 schools will have difficulty making it.
I wonder who they are. I wonder who would have trouble making that. Do you look at like it can't be any team in the SEC, right, or the Big Ten? So where do you look? ACC. I mean, Virginia gets a ton of money donated to them. I mean, it'd really be hard to figure out who it is. Maybe a Louisville.
When I saw that Houston was going to be able to pay the full, back when they thought it was going to be 22, and Eddie Nunez, the AD, was like, we're going to do the 22 if they say it's 22. Like, we're going to do whatever it says. I was like, if Houston can do that, I imagine every P4 can, because we've operated at a lot smaller budget for a long time now.
Right.
And I guess that was my assumption, was that if we're going to do it, everyone will.
Yeah.
Does anybody worry, so if they get guardrails on NIL, then this changes, but NIL, it's still not really level, though, because if everybody's getting to 20.5, I guess what they're trying to do, and this is like simultaneous with all this, is they're trying to get the regulations on like the fair market value with the NIL, right? So what is that exactly, though? What does that look like?
Well, I guess the theoretical thing would be like we just saw the BYU thing, to kind of come full circle with what JT asked about, God knows how many minutes ago, is that they're going to pay this Rob Wright guy like $3.5 million. Well, if he's worth $3.5 million, you could theoretically have like his net worth in the free market, like you mentioned, Paul, is $3.5 million. If 2 of it came from the school, then the NIL has to make up 1.5 or something, or what make the difference. So the kid can find a way to get their fair value that way, but the school creates a little bit more of a concrete relationship, is my understanding of it all. But we have a guy on the inside in JT. So JT,
For which
as a guy, I mean, am I so far off base there? Cody has to go cheer on a softball game, actually, is what I'm thinking is actually happening.
And I have to go
I
pick
really
up
like the
my
number you
son.
threw out there, by the way.
That'll work too.
Well,
All right, kids.
Cody has no interest in $3.5 million conversation, so Cody's out. But I will say that JT, I asked because you wanted to talk about BYU stuff, and that's the Rob Wright money we're talking about here, without Cam or Jake or Drake or anyone involved. But
My rival.
as a rival, I guess you're paying attention to BYU and corruption at all times. But also, I guess I was alluding to having a connection. We talked about your connection to the NCAA, like the committee of the tournament and stuff like that before. You're following the whole orchestration of college sports a little closer than most, I think, is what I was getting at, really. But I guess specifically BYU, they are your nearby rival.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look, I really like the fair market thing you talked about. I'm really curious how that impacts everything once the revenue sharing becomes part of this. How do guys' values get inflated? That's a fascinating conversation to me.
Mm-hmm.
Really quick on the BYU Baylor thing. BYU's not doing anything that everyone else is doing. So I know I saw Cam, what he said about BYU, and I know the word tampering gets thrown around. So like, how does that land? Like, what's happening? BYU's just doing what everyone else is. BYU tried to land a couple of Utah players for football early in the offseason. They did get one of them. They did not get a few other ones too. So this is going to happen. What's so interesting though is we all have this conference, this pride, I guess, where we're all cheering for like Houston in the conference championship game. But the reality is we're still rivals. We're still other opponents and other teams. So we're going to try and pick each other's players off to be the best we can now. That's what's really fascinating about this to me. But yeah, BYU is just doing something everyone else is, and BYU is very deep pockets. So they are going to be okay when it comes to basketball. We know that. I just think it's very interesting they get Baylor and now pits those two fan bases against each other in a really interesting way.
JT said that BYU is doing things that everyone else is doing. I want to stress that just in recruiting, they actually do very different things over there in the rest of the conference and a lot of other parts of life. But in recruiting, they're doing exactly what everyone else is doing.
Which leads me to Darren DeVries. Because
here we go.
You mentioned tampering. You mentioned tampering, and I'm just curious. Since Tucker DeVries followed Darren to Indiana, and it's likely that he accepted the Indiana coaching job while coaching West Virginia, probably talked to Tucker about going to Indiana. Isn't that technically tampering? Since he was talking to Tucker about going to Indiana while you were at West Virginia.
I would say yes, but you'll never be able to. That's the problem. It's like none of this.
Right. Well, I was trying to make a joke out of it, but it didn't land.
Is that just because they're talking at the dinner table, or what's the thought?
Well, I mean, we're pretty sure now he accepted the job several weeks before he left. Been able to pretty much figure that out. So, if he told Tucker like, "Hey, we're going to be going to Indiana after the season," that's pretty much tampering because he's still the West Virginia coach, right?
Right.
So just something I thought it was kind of funny.
Well, and in Indiana offers a whole other host of interesting things because, like, I guess they are a Big Ten school from a dollar amount, but they've been so down for so long. Yeah. Anyway, that is a long time here at the Big 12 squad with a substitute teacher.
We did good for the B squad, baby.
The B squad has grown, it has shrunk, but right now we got Nick, Machiavelli, Maravich, Matthews.
Let's go with Machiavelli. Switch it up right
my
now.
Body like a 12-inch
great
shot.
job. Barely talk about your team blowing a double-digit lead in the national championship game. Fantastic job today.
In the what happened? What?
National championship game.
That's supposed to be Monday. That already happened. Oh crap! Oh no! Oh god!
Dude, my ears are ringing so loud. Like they really are. It's been hard to get through for me.
Shout out Paul. Hey, shout
out Paul for the play and injured performance. That's an award. We go.
That's a flu game from Paul. That really is.
It's. Have you guys ever had tinnitus? Has anybody ever actually had this?
I have. I went to a Thunderstruck concert. It's a AC/DC cover band. Greatest night of my life. Had tinnitus for like a week. Not fun, but that was a very fun concert.
So does it go away? I mean, golly,
it will subside a little bit, or at least mine did.
I really thought when you texted that, Paul, that you were making a joke about things that have happened with West Virginia, and you had misspelled tendonitis at first. I read it really quickly, and I was like, "Oh, that's funny," and I didn't
Tucker, yeah,
not realize what was happening. That's Matt Near Paul, who is parenthetical dying from Locked on West Virginia. JT Wichita Locked on Utes. I also awkwardly made represent the entire NCAA. Nick Machiavelli is representing Ames, Iowa, and the Locked on Cyclones. Shout out to the rifling team at West Virginia, representing the Big 12 in the best way possible. It's the only championship team we're going to talk about, as I am Parker Ainsworth, host of Locked on Cougs. This is and has always been Locked on Big 12 Squad, sponsored by Game Time.
His name changed.
Dose Grande. That's what we got to say there.
His name changed like magic.